Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of My Car Shop, episode 5 of the 74 Dodge Dart Swinger. Today we're getting the car ready to put the quarter panel on. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
Okay, so we're here to peel off the rest of the quarter panel that got left on the bottom there, and we've got to do some fabricating. In here, this is bent because it was, I think, a tire came off or hit or something. And then we've got to create an inner wheel opening here and a couple of patches up there. So we're going to start doing that patchwork today. We'll see how much we get done. So hope you enjoy. Okay, so do you want to chisel that off?
Yeah.
Okay, and I've got to find a piece about 4 foot long. I'm guessing we didn't lose much in here, but we still need to probably have, what do you think, a 2-inch? Probably, yeah, up in here somewhere.
It's going to need to be cut off into here, which I can do
Okay.
as well.
Let's get the piece made before we get it cut, because we know that this is the lip right here.
Oh, okay.
So that'll give me, and then we can make a line and decide where we want to cut it off.
I was figuring we just use the existing quarter for measurement.
We can make the new quarter as far as to form it, but as far as knowing where it positions on here and why. So, and I'm thinking we might, once we got the piece formed and made, we will put it on the inside here and put a couple of pilot holes so we know where it goes. Then take the quarter back off and weld it on. So you see what I mean?
Just for alignment.
Right, the holes would be just for alignment purposes, so that we know, okay, once those holes are lined up when it's on the inside, we can, I mean, that's the quickest way to do it. And down there, it'll just be grabbing a handful of air, but same thing back in here.
Yeah, this is all going to have to, most of it's going to have to come up.
Yep.
Oh, this is neat.
Okay. What we'll do is, we can just come up in here with a piece that's an L piece and just go down and attach it. I don't care for it being original, it doesn't matter. I just want it to be structurally sound and sealed so we don't get all that dust and stuff inside the car like we used to. This was the car that he drove in high school, and because there's several creative rust holes in it, it was quite dirty inside half the time because we live on a lot of gravel roads. So. Between exhaust and dust.
Yeah, the disadvantage with that is going to be that it's still going to continue rotting out. I think I might be inclined to weld it inside.
Let's get it structurally sound by doing it out here, and then we'll put a patch over it on the inside just to seal it. Does that work?
We can do both.
Yeah. Because if we weld it in here, it's going to be really hard to get it to attach to anything. Where here we got a real good surface to it. In fact, we just about weld it. Just spot it up in there. But yeah, that way we seal it on the inside.
It's going to need both to a certain degree.
All right, that works.
Okay, so you can see the last bit of quarter panel that's attached here. Those spot welds have been drilled out and nicely mangled. but there are other spot welds vertically in here that are still attached. You can see them a little bit in between there. There's one. So the idea is going to be to take an air chisel and just go in there and chisel out the welds, and then that piece should fall free. Alright, we got it free. And that's the piece. Next step, I think, is going to be to hit this with a wire brush and get it all nice and get myself all nice and dusty and dirty and get this cleaned up a little bit so we can have a better idea of what we're working with underneath. And what that'll do is strip off all of the rust, and there's going to be a lot of rust holes that start showing up that will need to be patched, and that'll give us a better idea of what it's like structurally.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer in recycling, so we're just using a piece of this old quarter panel to make the inner fender well lips and some of the patches. Looks like crap right now, but by the time we dolly that out a little bit, then get it in the sheet metal brake to bend to 90 degrees that it needs, and run it through the shrinker stretcher, it's going to look just fine. So that's what's happening right here with this piece of metal, and we're going to be straightening this out now. So we just don't happen to have any big piece of metal that are long enough to do this, and we might as well repurpose stuff we're just going to be throwing away anyway and save a couple bucks. Okay, so over here at the sheet metal brake now, I've got my metal all lined up for an extra wide flange. We'll be cutting a lot of this off, and I'm doing this in two pieces, mostly because I only have a 36-inch sheet metal brake, and this part is actually 48 inches long, so I broke it up into two 26-inch pieces that we'll be able to cut and trim. So let's get this bent up, and again, you'll notice this metal is not real flat, doesn't matter. We can hammer and dolly it more if we need to, but this is for inner structure. We're not looking for show quality here. So, okay, so it's in there, and I haven't done the modifications for this yet that I want to. There's one. We've got a nice 90 now, and then what I can do with the shrinker stretcher is I may have to trim some of this material away up in here for the shrinker stretcher to work, but I can stretch this and then make it match the curvature of the quarter panel. So let's get the other one bent in the 90. So now we have a couple of nice pieces that are bent, and we'll get the shrinker stretcher out and start working on making the contours match the quarter panel lips. Okay, so now that we have these bent up, I'll be going over here to the quarter panel and starting to measure where the metal needs to be stretched. So I'll make some pencil marks on here and then see if I can stretch this. If I can't, I'll have to trim it in a little bit to allow for the stretch, because this is a pretty wide piece and the jaws of that stretcher aren't that deep, but it still may work. So we'll see what we can do here. And where did I put my pencil? Okay, so I got a ballpark here. about where that curvature is. So we'll start trying to stretch this to make this bend. And if it doesn't work out here, then what we'll have to do, as I said, is cut this down in here a little bit and then stretch it that way. Okay, as mentioned, and I figured it was going to be the case, it won't stretch that out that far. So I'm just cutting this in here so that there's a nice step. Gives me something to work with. So now we have it stepped out. Hopefully this is going to work in here now.
Okay, you can see here we got it mostly cleaned up. The frame is super solid, which is good. A little bit of a hole there needs to be fixed, but that's real good. In here, a bit cleaned up. There's some holes that I discovered up in here. I think the best solution is going to be to bend a little L-shaped piece to weld in here, because and the back side is going to have to be sealed, because you can't really weld from the back side because of this rust proofing or sound deadener or whatever it is. I haven't figured out what needs to be done this here yet. This will need to be capped off, but my guess is that we can do that separately.
Okay, so we are, the jaws were gummed up in this thing, so I was having some issues because of that. This is more like it. So right now we're just trying to make that follow the curvature of that wheel opening over there. So Brad, it's not cumbersome, it's just dirty. Okay, I don't want to get too carried away, so let's go see how it fits. Okay, so we can see what we have is, it's probably a little bit too tight in here. I can stretch that back, or shrink that back, and it needs to be a little bit tighter in here. So we'll go get that done and we'll come back. Okay, so I have stretched it back a little bit, and it's getting much closer here now. So I still need to stretch it, or shrink it I should say, right in there a little bit. It's just a little bit tight, so we'll go do that.
Okay, so what I'm working on right now is making a patch to go down this whole length here, because this, I don't know if you can see this, these panels are not attached to each other. It's all rusted out right there. So I have this piece that I put on the brake, and I bent a 90-degree angle on it so it can attach to the wheel well here, and then basically trimmed the contour to be able to fit here, and then to cover up all of those rust holes as it goes up. And now the next step is going to be to attempt to use the stretcher to bend that contour, which I've never used that tool before, so this will be an adventure.
Okay, so you can see what I've done here now. Got a little bit of fine tuning to do, but mostly I just need to hammer and dolly this. But the contours match, and it looks good. So the shrinker stretcher's definitely done me a nice job there of getting everything to line up. So we'll dolly this around here now, and I may need to tweak a little bit, but we're getting really close to having that inner panel fit.
Okay, we're getting close here. That stretcher works like a dream. I think the last thing that I need to do is that it's hanging up maybe a little bit right in here. And so I'll probably stretch it a little bit in there just to get hopefully close that gap up a bit. And then Might be able to weld it, I'm not sure yet. Depending on if we need to make sure that this inner fender is in the right position before we weld it up. But
Okay, so the first piece is roughed in, and Joe has it over there now to work on fitting it with what he's doing. So I'm going to work on the second piece here. And it's going to be this. As you can see here, this has got a much more gradual bend to it. It's also got a bend this way. So I need to think about which way I want to bend it first. Probably going to bend this curve here. Then I'll work on bending this curve this way. It's what I did on the last one, and that worked pretty well. But there really is a lot of curve in here. So that's pretty good there. Starts to bend about there. Ends about there. Okay, let's give that a shot.
I think that's going to be pretty darn close. There. Turned out quite well actually. Just like that.
The two of us here competing for the shrinker stretcher, so. Why am I getting in there? Oh, that's why. That'll do it. Gotta be really careful on this one. If I get too carried away, it'll be too much of a bend. Okay, let's see how that works. Not too much there. A little more there. Okay, now we gotta take this one back just a little bit right there on the shrinker. Here, that's it. Okay, there we go. All right, let's see how that is. Again, really close. It's so easy to overdo it. And I really did right in here. Just needs to be shrunk back up there a little bit, and then I need to stretch it down here. So I'm probably going to have to trim this down here so I can get in there. Okay. So I just got to do a bit of stretching right here. Might have to do a little there too. Looks like actually I gotta shrink that a little bit and then probably get up in here and stretch just a little bit. It's kind of off. We'll see. So one of the things we're doing here is just kind of opening that up a little bit more in here. You can see, yeah, right there, to allow me to come in there and just stretch and shrink that just a bit more. Using both right and left handers here just to trim things up a little bit. pretty good. And let's put this in there. There we go. I think that's going to be close. Let's see what we got. Too much. Of course. So I've actually got to go through and stretch that back out from about there to there. And the reason that happened is because I hadn't gone out far enough, and so I overshrunk it in here, or overstretched it in here, I should say. And so I need to shrink it back a little bit and take some more out of it.
Okay, we've got it tacked in there now. The bottom and up there at the top. And now basically it's just a process of slowly closing all those gaps and welding that in solid. And I do need to check on the inside and make sure that I'm not going to catch anything on fire. So
Joe's over here doing the real work while I've been over there just playing around with metal, but he's tacking in the parts now, as he was telling me in his video. And we're just going to tack everything in right now because the interior is still in the car, and we want to make sure we don't catch anything on fire, as he said. So we're just going to do a couple tack welds, plus that way everything is fitted, and if there is a problem we don't have to cut major things out. It's just a matter of grinding off a few welds. So we'll also throw some take the garden hose and just hose that down a little bit when we're done. Those door panels that are in there are not the ones that are staying anyway. Not that we want to ruin them, but if they get a little damp, it's not the end of the world. So just to be safe, I actually had a middle of the night moment where I went, oh, I wonder if that car's on fire from all that grinding. The wonderful things you wake up thinking about in the night. Our auto darkening helmet is a nod of the head. This is an old school shop. What he's doing is the pieces were bent rough in place, and he's just peening them over so we can weld them in place.
we'll have to have a punch for that last bit.
That's fine. I would say that's good enough for now anyway.
Okay.
Because we got to fit the wheel opening in there and stuff, and the patch down to the rocker panel and all that. So. Dolly this up a little bit here. If I remember right, this does come out here.
What comes out?
Well, maybe this is bent there. I was thinking this came out, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it is bent right there. Probably is. Looks to me like that should be straight, because the way this is creased. Pretty close, I think.
That looks better.
Yeah. Once we get the quarter in there,
Yeah.
this piece will go somewhere in there. I don't remember where exactly, but something like that. No, just like this.
Did you make it backwards? Because this edge should be towards the other side. Like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I bent this one and I shouldn't have been. Yeah, because when I bent that, I thought that's going to be bent too. And then the other one. Trim those to fit, obviously, but it's ish where it goes.
It's pretty fancy.
Beats the way we used to do it. Slice, 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 slice. Weld, weld, weld for 3 days. Okay, so this needs to be dollied flat. Bent back. Thinking it needed to be bent. It didn't. Something like that in there somewhere. This probably comes out more, I'm not sure, but it fits the quarter panel pretty close. So we won't know till like maybe it needs to bend up here. You know what I'm saying? Is that piece still on there where it lines up from the factory?
Barely needs to be straightened out a bit.
That'll help us. That's better. So ish like that. We'll obviously have to put some patches in here, but this needs to obviously be cut way off. But it's just. Oh, I envy you being able to do that.
So like this.
You just call 911 for me right now.
Stretch every day.
Yeah, it's cool. What's our next step?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I think we need to get the quarter panel, just hang it on so it's roughly in place. And then start just getting this roughed in like we talked about.
Yeah, if we knew what height these go at, well, if we could tack these in place, that would be a huge step forward. And we can start patching everything else.
Right. So my plan was to put these on, but rather than putting them on this side where they belong to start, we'll get the quarter panel in place and then fit these on the inside, like so, however it is, if we can. We may have to do it like this.
Could slip them up in between.
But then, well, I suppose we could still drill. I'm just concerned about,
Drill them through the quarter. Yeah.
we should be okay.
I would just. We should be able to just clamp them.
To what? We can clamp them to the quarter, well, yeah, we can clamp them to the quarter panel, but how do we weld them? Oh, I know how.
Oh.
Just drill a couple of tack holes through up there with the approximate area of where that is. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's mushed out a bit.
Just be to hold it in place.
Oh, to clamp it.
Yes. Chop that out.
Probably.
I don't know if this is really doing this any good.
Now, it's giving us a guideline to start, and then I don't disagree with you about cutting it off. I guess it's your call. What do you think?
I think ultimately the last authority on where these go is going to be the quarter itself. It's not going to be the inner.
Right.
So
If we can get them, we don't have any cleatos, that would be the perfect scenario. But if we can get them held in place either with a tack weld or sheet metal screws or something, then we can outline where they go and then cut accordingly and then weld them on there.
what do you need to cut?
Well, if we want to cut this rust off, you know, if we want to come out in here. I guess we don't have to, but I mean, with that corrosion in there, it is going to rust.
Yeah, I was planning on this back.
But we don't want to whack it down below. You know, we need to leave some overlap material for this. Ouch.
Oh, is it that close?
Yeah, it is. Ish, you know. I have no idea, obviously, where it goes, but I'm guessing like that.
Yeah, I just have to be careful about that.
And then I would just take a cutoff wheel and just go below that a quarter of an inch maybe. Just about do it with tin snips actually. It's so thin it would just. And then the same thing on that one. Okay, that works. So that's a big part of this as you're fabricating, is just figuring out exactly where things go, how they go. We're not really going to have an overlap here. We're going to cut that off so they're flush, but we made them, they overlap so they're adjustable as we're fitting it. So.
Yeah, this is real. This here. Really tight. In fact, I might have to patch that.
Well, I kind of figured we might have to put more metal in there, but in order to get that to bend easily and properly, I think we've got to be able to do it. So. I tried doing one wider and it ended up buckling, so. Look at the cherry picker. So what do you think needs to be different? Is the piece just not bent well enough, do you think?
It's hard to say.
The quarter panel looks straight right there. And this does not go all the way down to here. It kind of is up just a little bit to, it's because it just fits in there where my finger is.
It's just in the middle. It's not.
Is it just bent too much? My hope was when we got it, once we had it welded into the inner structure, then we would just take that big pair of benders and just bend that, bend this angle down a little bit. So, and I did carve it this way some, I thought, maybe I didn't. I'm not seeing any chew marks on there that I
It's
did.
perfectly straight. I think that's the biggest issue.
Okay, so it needs to swoop in like this. Okay, so if I shrink it a little bit down through here, that should help.
Yeah.
I bet I forgot to do that. Okay, right, I'll go do that.
Yeah, it's not, the paint isn't ground off either.
Right, that's what I was realizing as I was saying that. Okay, so we got the first piece tacked in, and again, we're not trying to be pretty at this point. We're just getting structure there, then we'll start stitching pieces in, filling in the gap. But we've got that contour here. Back here, this piece needs to be bent way out. It's bent in. Helps if I show it. So this piece is in about the right place, but this inner structure is bent here, so that's fine. So now we can start fitting the front part that's down there on the floor and get that just tacked in. After that's done, we will need to start actually fitting the quarter panel itself so that we can make sure all this is in the right place, and once the quarter panel is cut down and fit, we can get this stuff all sewn together and make it look pretty. So we're just fitting that piece because I made them extra long, and then we'll cut them to fit, and so they'll butt weld right against each other. Something like that. And then of course once we know where it goes, that'll get cut off as well. cameraman going at it.
To send it to my friend in Texas.
Sweet. So we have the structure of the wheel opening done. It matches the quarter panel perfectly. Now what we need to do is just start putting stitch panels in there and so forth to make it pretty. But before we can do that, we have to cut the quarter panel closer to fitting so that we're sure everything lines up perfectly. We obviously have lots of holes and things to be cut and fit, but we're close. So this is going to come together really nicely. Again, we're not trying to do concourse here. This is just structural. If we were doing a real show car, we would be doing much different work than this, but right now this is just about getting this thing so it structurally holds and the quarter panels don't flop and we don't get exhaust and dust in the car. So it'll look respectable when it's done. It's just work in progress right now.
This stage is really just about getting the right, if we can get the wheel opening in the right position, everything else can be patched in to fill in the gaps, but that's the important measurement to get right. From there on out, it's quick work.
Frankenstein work.
Yep.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts?
It's a good job done. It's huge progress.
Yeah, it's tedious stuff, and especially we're using new tools that we haven't had before, so that makes it take a little bit longer. And he's been pining to weld for a long time, so I let him run the welder the whole time. It wasn't that I was just making him do it. It was just he likes welding, and he's been gone for a long time. So we made good progress today, so we appreciate you joining us today. We'll probably be back at this again soon. Hopefully next we'll get the inner structure at least all welded together and maybe get the quarter panel tacked on. We'll see. Things always take longer than you expect. So thanks for joining us. And if you would, tell your friends about the show. We'd appreciate that. Subscribe, hit the bell so you get the notifications. Also, don't forget that we're on Instagram and Facebook. Just look for /MyCarShop. That's us. Have a great weekend. What was that about? Have a good night. Talk to you later.